Thanks for joining us for the Two Maine Friends podcast.
We're so glad you're here.
We're your hosts, Natasha
and Lindsay.
Hey friends, thanks so much for joining us today. I'm excited to talk about something that I think is really important that we share because it affects all of us so frequently, but yet we don't really address what the issue is. And that is insecurity in friendship. I mean, I know that we all carry insecurity in different ways. But in regards to friendship, I think it's something that's worth talking about. And so today, I think we should just kind of dive into what it looks like to have insecurity in friendship, what it does to our relationships, and just kind of talk through what that feels like, what it looks like, how it impacts our relationships. What do you think, Lindsay?
Yeah, I think that we all go in our day-to-day insecurities, and that affects our relationships with the people around us. And it affects how we communicate. It affects how we do life together on a day-to-day basis. I know you had some really good thoughts earlier this week about what insecurity did for you in friendships in the past.
Yeah, I was kind of reflecting back on like my high school years and maybe even early college days too, a little bit. My college experience was fantastic, so I don't remember it being as much of an issue because I found a group of people for the first time that like I was finding my own person, I guess, outside of my normal routine of life. And I was in a different space, a different state even. And so that was really freeing for me. And I really enjoyed my college experience. But as I look back over high school, there were so many times that I felt like for whatever reason, and I don't even know where this came from, if it was because typically I was the youngest person in the room. And I don't know like if that was part of it. But I always had this like thought in the back of my mind, these people don't actually want to hang out with me. They feel obligated to hang out with me. And they never said those words. They didn't act in a way that said that that was the case. It was just something that like I picked up somewhere and brought it into a lot of the relationships that I had in high school. And that really affected how I engaged with them because I didn't necessarily like open up a lot because I just assumed they thought I was the little kid.
Yeah. What I hear is assume. You're saying I assumed. So somewhere in that you decided I'm not good enough, or I'm not worth being in this room with these people, or I shouldn't be here with them based on either circumstances that you had walked through or where you were at in your life in that moment. And so your insecurities of who maybe you even were as a person, not coming to find yourself. You said that whenever you went to college, it was kind of freeing, right? And I think a lot of times whenever we go off to school, we're separated from all of the familiar, and so is everyone else. We're all kind of thrown into this place of, oh, it's new. And now it's my chance to kind of find who I am without the influence of my teachers, without the influence of my family, without the influence of my surroundings that are familiar to me. So it is kind of that open door to free those insecurities a little bit and kind of hone in onto who you are. What do I really like to do in my off time? Who really am I as a person, and who do I want to be? That's a big question I answered when I went to college too, was who do I want to be in the future?
Yeah. And, you know, I can look back on college and maybe I'm looking at it through like rose-colored lenses just because I had such a positive college experience that I genuinely really enjoyed like 98% of the people I interacted with. Like, I don't remember, and I'm sure that there were like a handful of people that just were in a different group and we didn't really jive the same way. But from upperclassmen to the people that were in my class, like we all just had this really great camaraderie. Like we all enjoyed spending time together. And I was really grateful for that experience because it taught me for the first time from my perspective, like these people didn't make me feel like they were obligated to hang out with me. And again, like that wasn't what the people in high school did either. But I genuinely felt like, oh, this is what it's like to have a friendship and people around me that we're all kind of doing the same thing and we want to spend time together. And I just was so grateful for that experience to be able to learn who I was, because I was still figuring out a lot of things I didn't realize I needed to like sort through. And it helped me find the confidence that I needed as a person and in relationship with other people too.
Yeah, I think in high school or even middle school, you know, we are just developing and trying to figure out who we are as people. Middle school were the awkward years, is what I always called it. You're kind of like coming into your own, and
oh my goodness.
Then you're thrown into high school, and it's so different up here. I grew up in Florida, so schools were massive. There were over 1,000 kids in my high school, and so then you're kind of thrown, the middle schools merged together, you have the upperclassmen, and then you feel really insecure. Like you're no longer the cool 8th grader coming into it. You're the freshman trying to find your way. And so when you add your own personal insecurities on top of feeling kind of lost in that environment, it adds a whole new dynamic to the high school experience. What was it like for you in high school?
So it was much different than that because I went to a very small private school. So there were 40 people total from K through 12th grade. And in my senior class, there were 3 other students other than myself. And so we did a lot of things together with the 7th. So our classroom was 7th grade through 12th grade. And so like those were like the ages. There were a couple of years. I don't remember if it was my sophomore year or my freshman year, but there was a couple of years where our school like boomed all of a sudden for 1 year, and we had like 75 or 85 students, something like crazy like that. And that was the year we did all the things. So like we had sports for the first time. We had all of these different things that we could never do before. And so that was very interesting because what used to be like this close-knit group of people, like a bunch of the kids in my grade, we had been in the same grade since 7th grade. Then all of a sudden you bring in all these extra people, and we were like, what is happening? And then shortly after, they all left as quickly as they entered, and our school went back down to like the 40 so kids that it was. And so that dynamic was very different because it wasn't just high schoolers. It was 7th graders, it was 8th graders, and we were all kind of just doing everything. So like all of our gym classes were together, all of our field trips and things like that were always 7th through 12th grade. So yeah, you add in the awkwardness of 7th and 8th graders with, you know, the upperclassmen, as you call them. And it's a wild place to be.
I bet. What about as you got older? So we talked about a little bit about going to college and how you kind of started to feel your groove. And I know you have moved around a little bit. So you did college, you moved to Massachusetts. So how does insecurity affect those moments of kind of finding your own to starting over in a new place?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that because I was confident that I was where I was supposed to be, I felt more sure of myself. And so I don't remember as much. No, I take that back. There were a lot of moments, but they came in different ways. Like it wasn't so much feeling insecure, like I shouldn't be here, but I would hide behind a lot of the positions that I had. So like, for instance, I worked at a church in Boston for a long time. And I interned with them first. So I really got to know the people of that community really well. And so by the time I was on staff with them, I'd already been around for a couple of years and kind of knew that. But I can remember choosing to like not go to events because I quote unquote like had work to do. And it wasn't that I couldn't have done it at a different time. It was that I felt uncomfortable joining in. Like I didn't really know what to expect or who to be because I was also on staff. So like I made it this thing in my head that it didn't need to be. I could have just attended the events, right? And I can remember she was the leader of the young adults group at the time, and she would message me and be like, hey, are you coming? And I'd be like, no, I can't. And then like she would somehow get me to go. And I don't remember how she did that, and I would go sometimes, but I always had the exit plan in my head. And maybe that's just the introvert in me, right? Like shout out all introverts. We have to go into our events knowing what the exit plan is because whenever we are done, we just want to be able to leave.
Absolutely. I always have my exit plan. We just went and saw a play, and I was thinking, okay, well, if I get too overwhelmed, I can just walk out the back door, or there's an exit here. Like, there's always an escape plan.
Oh, for sure. And I think that I just really played into my introvertedness. And maybe that was just part of the season I was in too. But yeah, it's hard to kind of figure out, like, what do I feel safe in? What do I want to give to this, right? And I love that you used the word lost a few minutes ago, because sometimes it feels like that, right? Like you're navigating either a new space or a new city or a new job position, and you're trying to figure out, where do I fit in this puzzle piece of all these things? And you do kind of feel lost. And I think that's why I kind of played into the positions that I had over the years, because it was easier for me to be able to have a defined role to play than to just be someone that I had to like mix and mingle.
Yeah, we've both worked in similar situations with ministry, right? So being able to kind of hide behind our work is an introvert's dream. I still do it to this day in my current job, is that whenever you feel taxed out or you get in your head about something, specifically getting in your head about something, it's easy to kind of hide behind the work or not go to the event when you're feeling insecure because you have quote unquote work that needs to be done. Definitely.
Yeah. And it's not necessarily great. Like, I kind of regret those moments now, like looking back on it, I wonder what I could have gained from those relationships then that I chose to not participate in because I was scared or because I didn't know what to do with it, right? Like that tension of, I don't know what to do with this feeling of insecurity and uncomfortableness. And so I'm unwilling to step outside of what feels good for me.
And imagine if you had done that and started building those relationships, how you could have had a safe space to place that insecurity instead of holding it to yourself.
And I held everything close. Like, and there's, I think, an appropriate amount of time to do that, right? Like there's a time and a place to kind of hold some things close. But I think during that season, I think I held too many things too closely. Because I remember people asking like, hey, are you okay? And I would say, yeah, I'm fine. And they would just look at me with like a very confused face, like, okay. Because they could see that I was not fine, but I didn't know how to respond other than I'm fine.
And we're kind of conditioned that way, right? Like when somebody says, hey, how are you? And I'm not saying every person that you come across, you have to like dump your life story out to them.
The grocery store
but
part.
there truly are those people that are placed in your life to be that kind of compass that you can say, oh yeah, I'm really dealing with this right now. Or I just really had a bad day. Like sometimes it feels just so good to be like, I'm having a really bad day. My morning didn't go well. I burnt myself with the straightener. You know,
because
like,
we've all done that.
Those bad days. I can't imagine now, you know, I think we should talk about the now in life. When we were in school, social media wasn't a huge thing.
No.
And a lot of times now we live in such that social media world. We're told, especially as women, and I'm sure men deal with this as well, but we know the female perspective on this. But
yeah,
we're told who we should be, how we should act, how we should dress, what's in style, what's not in style, how we should talk sometimes too, how to be a lady or whatever. We have so many things thrown at us all the time. That insecurity is so easy to filter through our brains, even in our 30s.
Yeah.
I can't imagine being in my teens, listening to that and watching that on TV and just being clouded with all of those things. And building those insecurities of my outfit doesn't look right, or it's not the outfit that's in style. I'm not wearing the latest and greatest fashion. I grew up in a home where we didn't buy the latest and greatest fashion.
Same.
We shopped at Walmart most of the time, which
yeah.
I appreciate that now as an adult.
Yeah, no, 100%. And, you know, I think that's so true, right? Like, I can't imagine either needing to be, not needing, but just having social media be such a huge part of adding that other layer, right? Like we only had, you know, I think I was a junior or senior when like instant message, no, I wasn't a senior. I was definitely a sophomore, junior, when instant messaging was the big thing. And we didn't have internet at my house growing up at first. And so I can remember feeling that like I'm left out because all my friends would go home and IM each other all night and then come in laughing about like their inside jokes. And I was like, what's going on? And so like that plays into it. So I can only imagine how much more amplified it is now with, you know, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, all those things, and how to navigate insecurity in the midst of that, because and again, like people only post what they want people to see. And as a teenager, you can't process that in your brain that like, oh, they're just posting the best parts of their life. They're not sharing all of it. And the beauty of getting older in life, right, is we get to understand that perspective now and have to remind ourselves even today, right? Like it's still easy for us to get caught up in that and have to be reminded, nope, that's not everyone's whole life. That's a snippet of a 5-minute, you know, reel or whatever. And that's not the whole story.
Right. Because at the end of the day, we all have stuff that we struggle with. We all want to grow in this life and be better versions of ourselves, hopefully. That's our end goal and our end takeaway. And it's easy to get in our heads and have those insecurities of, I should be more like this or I should be more of that. But what if we just put on pause for a second and say, I am enough. Exactly who I am is enough. And it's easy whenever we're the quiet, shy one to look at our more extroverted, outspoken friends who can walk into a room and command the room and the attention of that, you know. And I have several people in my life that are like that, where they just don't leave knowing a stranger. And I grew up very envious of that. And that's never going to be me. And I had to accept that in my late 20s, that I'm not the funny friend. I'm not the loud, extroverted friend. But there were a lot of years that I wanted to be that. So I would try to put on that hat and put on that facade. And at the end of the day, when I would fall short, that was the insecurity coming out of me, being like, well, I'm never going to be good enough. I'm never going to be this or that or whatnot. But when you can truly just accept that, like, I am the quiet friend, I'm the encourager. You want a good word? Come to me. I'll give you a great word. I'll tell you how awesome you are every single day of the week.
It's true.
And that's okay too, right?
Oh, 100%. And I'm so glad you brought that up, because I also struggled with that. And I don't even know where it comes from, right? Like, where did it come from that the person that makes everybody laugh is the most liked? Like, because that was my thing I carried through most of my 20s too. Like, this idea that unless I make people laugh, they don't like me. And I don't know why. Like, why is the funny friend the one that, and maybe it is, because maybe it is they're extroverted and more commanding, and that's never been me either. And I'm much more of a deep thinker, and I'm much more of because I'm introverted, like I just think differently. And so, you know, it wasn't until I read an article in my 20s that like described all these different kinds of friends. And they were talking in this article, and I wish I could remember what it was, about how, you know, sometimes you have a friend that is your go-to fun friend, where they're the one you call to like go shopping and go hiking and do all the fun stuff. And that's who you go to for that. But then there's another friend that you can sit over coffee with and just share your heart and know that like they're safe and it's okay to share all of that. And then there's the friend that is the funny friend, but you don't have to be all of those things for your people. And for me, that was what was freeing to kind of come to terms with, was, wait a second, I don't have to fill that role in somebody's life to be the funny friend if I'm not created to be funny. And yeah, we can make each other laugh in our own ways, but overall, like, I'm not going to walk into a room and be the life of the party. That's not who I am.
I think as I got older, I realized that's not who I want to be either.
No, it's a lot of pressure.
I like not being noticed. So the fact that when I was younger, I thought that that's what I wanted, but it ties right back into insecurities of just trying to find yourself throughout the years. And that's not exclusive to just being a teenager, right?
No, it's definitely not.
Your 20s, your 30s. We've both gone through different seasons of life completely. And I think for me, I can say insecurity has certainly like played a part. When I moved back to Maine in 2014 and trying to find a career, I felt very insecure in that. what am I going to do? I had worked in ministry for X amount of years, and now I'm looking at work that's not quote unquote under a ministry umbrella. And so that was really scary and intimidating. And can I do it? Do I have the right skill sets? Do I have all the tools in my belt to do that type of work? And so I think no matter where you are in life, insecurity can start to creep in your head, knock on your door, and kind of want to have that conversation with you. But where do you place it at the end of the day?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I don't know that I have a right or wrong. I don't think there is a right or wrong answer because we're all walking on different journeys. But I think that being aware of the insecurity and being able to process through that with somebody that's safe, and maybe that's with a therapist, or maybe that's with your best friend over coffee, kind of highlighting like, hey, this is something that I'm carrying, and kind of talking through it kind of helps at least put it at bay maybe, or at ease in our minds, that it's, because if we leave it in our minds and we think about it too much, that's when it becomes enlarged and we can hyper fixate on it. And then it becomes something it's not meant to be. And I would never want that to be the case for people, right? Like, we don't want to over complicate it, but also just be willing to be aware that, hey, this is actually an insecurity. It's not that I have an issue with my friend. It's that internally I'm struggling with this, right? And being able to talk about it.
Absolutely. I think putting on the lens of realization versus insecurity, like realizing where you're at in the circumstances that are surrounding you, because insecurity can creep in at any moment. You could be having the best day of your life, and then all of a sudden one thing goes wrong, you spilt your coffee on the ground, and suddenly those negative voices, I can't do anything right, I always mess up, start kind of to creep in there. Or maybe it's just, I'm never going to succeed at XYZ, and so I might as well stop trying, or whatever that voice is that's tucked in the back of your head can come out just so easily. And you have to be ready to have the right things in place to combat that insecurity, whether that is you're journaling, you're talking to your therapist, you're talking to your best friend, your partner, your spouse, whoever it is that you can get those encouragements from, because sometimes it's not enough for us to say it. And I've sat in my mirror plenty of times and said, no, you are this, you are that, and tried to speak that life into yourself. But sometimes it takes maybe having one other person say, no, you're seeing it this way, but this is how I'm perceiving you. And I just want to encourage you in whatever it is that you need that encouragement in that moment. I know for you and I, a few months ago, I was kind of reconsidering. I worked 2 jobs, and I was reconsidering what my second job would be. I had interviewed with another company for kind of an overnight second shift weekend position. And I was feeling kind of nervous, unsure of myself. And in that moment, I felt insecure if I could make the right decision or wrong decision. So I called you and I just said, hey, do you have 5 minutes? And maybe it's just initiating someone and saying, I need a 5-minute friend that I can just speak the things that I'm insecure about or that I'm worried over and get it off my chest. And they may not even need to say anything, but you just need a 5-minute safe space to say it, speak it, and move on.
Yeah. And I think too, like, I know that you and I, we follow the Lord, and we believe that the Bible is kind of the foundation that we make a lot of our decisions off of. And I think that, you know, when we read scripture and we incorporate that into our daily life, sometimes you need that friend to say, nope, because God's word says this is who you are, and be reminded of the truth that comes from reading God's word. And if maybe you don't follow the Lord, you know, I would encourage you to try. Like, the Bible has so much wisdom and help for us for our everyday life. And I think that sometimes when there's so many voices in our culture and in our society that say you need to be this way or that way, or do this thing or do that thing, or drink more water and stand in the sun for 10 minutes, you know, because we're all overcomplicated houseplants. And so it's easy to get overwhelmed by all of these expectations from so many different places, that being able to go back to scripture and say, well, no, God says that I am enough because of what he has done for me, and be reminded of those truths, because it's easy for the truth of everything else to feel so loud that we forget that God's word is the one that really shows us and tells us that he has created us the way that he wants us, and he doesn't make mistakes, and that he made us the way that he created us for a reason.
Absolutely. So if you're feeling like you're too loud or too much or not enough, you're exactly who you're supposed to be right in this moment, right? And I think for both of us, we could probably say that we hold tight to I'm beautifully and wonderfully made.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
We are created for a purpose, with purpose, and you're exactly who you're supposed to be while also growing at the same time. And that sounds so complicated sometimes, but you said it, we're complicated houseplants. We need to be grounded. We need water, and then we'll flourish. But at the end of the day, where are you finding that? I think is the biggest point. And just make sure that where you're finding it is simple truth. And there's just so simple truth that you're created for a purpose. You're beautifully and wonderfully made. And you can rest in that at the end of the day with all the complicated emotions, with all of the insecurities. You can rest your head at night saying, I'm exactly who I'm supposed to be, even in this growth season where I don't really know what I'm doing.
And it's okay to be in a growth season. And those seasons are uncomfortable. And I wish we would say that more frequently, because a lot of times when you hear about growth, or you hear, you know, like you kind of picture, at least for me, maybe I should speak for myself. I'm not going to generalize here. But for me, like I kind of get this picture of like this, you know, Princess Diaries style makeover, right? Where like Paolo comes in with the hairbrush and the hair dryers, and in 15 minutes after the montage is over, she's a beautiful princess, right? Like, and growth isn't that simple. And if you're in a growth season where like maybe you have to let go of old thought processes from maybe it's high school years, or maybe it's those insecurities that are just speaking so loud, to let go of them and move forward isn't an easy process. And that's okay. It's okay to be in the middle and have this tension of, I'm not where I want to be yet, but I'm also not who I was before. And kind of sitting in the middle is okay. And we have to kind of learn to accept that moment, accept that season, because maybe it is for a season, and seasons are all different, right? Like some seasons are longer than others. But if we're constantly trying or beating ourselves up because we're not where we think we should be, we're going to miss out on what's happening in the process, because the process is where the growth happens.
I just listened to a podcast the other day, and the host, they were talking, it was Priscilla Shire, and I forget who she was sitting with, so I apologize, but they were talking about seasons of life, and she said, you know, when I was in high school, I just wanted to go to college, and when I was in college, I just wanted to get married, and when I got married, I just wanted to have children, and now that I have children, I want to do the next thing, and it's always about the next thing. Mm-hmm. And she said, what if you just paused and enjoyed the moment that you're in?
So good.
Instead of trying to look ahead to the next thing, because we can plan our future. I'm a planner. People make fun of me. My coworkers, the people in my life, my friends just make fun of me all the time because I want to know what's X, Y, Z. Like, how are we getting there? But what if you just center in on today? Mm-hmm. Tomorrow is going to hold space for tomorrow.
Yep.
But just sit with today and honor today for what it is in your life and where it's taking you for tomorrow, because you're not going to get there without today.
Right. And it's hard to sit in that when you feel uncomfortable.
Absolutely.
Like, I've walked through a lot of that recently in the last couple of years, like, you know, feeling that tension of I'm not where I want to be, but I'm not where I was, but it's uncomfortable. And we want so often to just skip to the next part where we're not uncomfortable anymore. And I'm thankful that, you know, through this process and this journey, it's, you know, it's taught me a lot, but it's not been easy to sit in that tension of, I don't like this. I want something different, please. You know, and it doesn't happen quickly. But being willing to be okay with that is part of it.
I agree. I would encourage anyone, step out in your insecurities. We could even talk about our doing this podcast together.
Oh my goodness, for sure.
We recorded already a few episodes and went back and decided, no, we didn't love how that came out. And so we're going to do it again. And that's okay. But step out in your insecurity. We know that we may not be everyone's favorite. We know we may not get great comments. We might get a bad rating. And those things we've talked about make us a little nervous. But I think whenever you can embrace that you are who you are and you may not be for everyone. You may be for everyone at the end of the day, but embrace who you are as a person.
And don't let insecurity limit your relationships, because there's so much value in the relationships that you have in your life that can be limited because of either our perception or what insecurity is speaking the loudest at that point. And so I would just encourage you, if you're struggling with insecurity in friendship, bring it to somebody that you know you can trust with it, but also try to sort through it, because we want to work together as friends, right? To move forward and to not be limited in our relationships because we're hearing the insecurity so loudly.
Surround yourself with the people that you know are going to lift you up in your insecurity, that are going to speak truth to those moments for you, and also help you and encourage you to press forward. And don't limit yourself and your abilities to be a good friend just because you're feeling insecure in something. That's a wrap on this episode of Two Maine Friends in a Podcast. Follow us on Facebook or Instagram. You can also send us an email at twomainefriends@gmail.com. And as always, leave us a review wherever you're listening.